My recommendation would always be not to go to Canada. Canadian economy has not been doing very well. But the catch is those 50-60% of the people who got a job there were already making northwards of around 30 lakhs in India, where they don't really like Indians anymore. And there's a heightened bit of racism happening, especially in prominent cities like Toronto. The thing with Canada is the public transit system is not very good. Half of the year you're going to spend inside your house, so that entire point of going out and experiencing a vibrant and a lot more colors is just not going to happen for you.
Hello all. Today we have somebody in our office who have studied in Canada and recommend not to go to Canada as a study abroad destination. We have Dhanraj here. Hi Dhanraj. How are you?
Hi, I'm very good. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for agreeing to do so. I'm very excited about today's podcast because usually when we do podcast, we usually hear the positive side of the things, right?
Right.
With you, as we have discussed, I actually want to know the ground reality of studying abroad, and specifically as you have studied in Canada, specifically for Canada, right? So first, a quick introduction about yourself. So can you tell what you have been doing in life, how you ended up in Canada, and then maybe from there we can go ahead.
Sure. So basically, as I mentioned before, I'm from Delhi originally, and I did my BCom honors from Delhi University. After completing my BCom honors, I decided to gain 1 or 2 years of work experience, and after that, I went for my masters to Canada. I went to Schulich School of Business.
That's one of the very good
business. It's among the top 5 business schools in Canada. So I completed my masters there, and then I decided to come and join back my family business.
Okay.
So I'm particularly in the line of education consultancies.
Correct.
So yeah, most siblings that I have, everyone has studied abroad in different countries. So 1 or 2 of them have done it from the UK. 1 or 2 are currently doing it from Australia. Wow. So yeah, I wanted to see the North American side of things, and I decided to go for Canada. And after coming back, I thought I have fresh insights into how a student life is, how to get jobs, all of those things.
Right.
So I decided to join my family business, which is again education consulting, and help out providing those insights to other people so they can make more informed decisions.
Got it. So you mentioned one of the key reason you came back to India is primarily you did not like the country specifically, right? And you mentioned that your siblings are studying or are in other countries, and you felt that those were the better options. So what specifically was the thing that made you make that comment that I did not like the country overall?
All right. So I would split that into 2 factors. One are temporary factors, the economy being the main one, right? So whenever you graduate from a country, you sort of want to get a piece of that economy within you, like get a job, build yourself over there. Now, the year when I graduated, or I would say like for the past couple of years, Canadian economy has not been doing very well. So because of that, even if I graduated, the jobs that I would have would pay way less than what they ordinarily would have, right? So because of that recession period going on, it wasn't really fruitful for me to stay back and waste my time. And on the other hand, there are more permanent factors in nature, like the ideologies and beliefs of the people, the local people, Canadians. So over there's a lot of stigma surrounding Indians where they don't really like Indians anymore. And there's a heightened bit of racism happening, especially in prominent cities like Toronto. So because of that, you're not really welcome in that country. And even if you stay back, the cultural exposure that you look for when you study abroad, that will be missing from your journey. So for those reasons, it just made more sense to me that, come back to India. And yeah, other countries like I mentioned, UK, Australia, you might hear that there's racism there, but those are instances. There's not a propaganda against Indians there among the mass community, which was the case with Canada. So those factors, along with other factors like the extreme weather, made it very unpleasant to stay back.
Yeah. So those are the very big, sort of allegations, I would say, which I have been hearing here. So this is, you are mentioning that there is propaganda against Indian community. So why you felt that's happening in Canada?
So, personally, I don't know the exact reason, but one of the factors why, Canadians in general don't like Indians are because, a lot of us have recently started going to Canada.
Yeah.
And because of that reason, in terms of the job market, we are the ones taking up the jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So they feel that their own brands and their own people are sort of being replaced by us, which, it sort of creates a cause of frustration for them. The second would be the cultural impact it has. So it creates a cultural shock for the local people when, all of a sudden in a period of 5 years, you go from, having 1% Indian in your population to 10% Indian in your population. And in cities like Toronto, 30%, like 1 out of 3 people are Indians. So they've all come in a period of 5 years. So they bring their own culture. And naturally, those few years is not enough time for the Canadians to accept that cultural change. So I think it's that, but I'm no expert on that matter.
But I get this sentiment, and I think this is a sentiment which has been there in a lot of countries, maybe at a different level. But specifically, any incident that you can remember that happened with you while you were there, where you were made feel that okay, you are not welcomed here in this particular country.
With me, no, but in general, I've heard so many stories over the course of time that I was there. And also, more conclusive proof of this hypothesis would be that whenever you go for a master's, like I did to Canada, you will notice that there is a certain sense of community that arises there. So all Indians will usually hang out together. There won't be as much intermingling with the locals as you would expect. So that itself is conclusive proof that, the idea of being in your own community is sort of growing over there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, makes sense. So other thing that you mentioned is extreme weather, right? So if you compare the, let's say, weather of Canada to other countries out there, like how would you place Canada?
I mean, it's extreme weather. There's like no secret about it. So I was in Toronto. Over there in peak winters, you can expect -30, and because it feels like it feels like -40 during peak winters. So there's snow all over, heavy snowfall. You can't, like, if you don't have a car, it's pretty much impossible for you to commute. And the thing with Canada is the public transit system is not very good. So Toronto is actually the best one in Canada. Outside Toronto, if you go to places like Edmonton, where I used to frequently visit, their public transit is non-existent, and their environment is even harsher to the extent that it goes up to -50, feels like. So because of those extreme weather conditions, half of the year you're going to spend inside your house. So that entire point of going out and experiencing a vibrant and a lot more colors is just not going to happen for you.
Earlier you spoke about economy not being great there, right? So you must have noticed people or your batchmates who graduated along with you. So what percentage of them did get the job? And you also mentioned in our earlier conversation that the salaries, there was a lot of difference in the expected salaries versus the salaries that people were getting.
Right.
So what is the ground reality from that perspective?
So one of the good things about graduating from Schulich is that I got to interact with all the alumni, people who had graduated 1 year before me, 2 years before me, 3 years before me, 5 years before me, and even 10 years before me. So I sort of could mark the trajectory on how the salary had declined. So during our year at least, jobs that would ordinarily pay around $150,000 were paying around 80,000-90,000 because there was an excess supply in the market for qualified people. Jobs that would ordinarily be for freshers were now hiring people with 2-3 years of work experience. So these were more of the qualitative factors you can think. And apart from that, Canada has a socialistic economy. So they have very high tax rates, right? Very high tax rates, and in comparison to those very high tax rates, the net salary that you get is just not enough to save any money. So even if you're making $100,000, which a master's students might expect to make, right? So in Indian rupees, around 65 lakhs.
Right.
After taxes, after paying the Toronto rent, the increased price of groceries and all of that, you might save around $500 a month.
A month.
Yeah.
Which is nothing.
Exactly. $500 to $1,000 a month is your savings, which makes no sense. because the price of groceries and all of that, even during my 1 year stay, it went up from like simple like bread went up from $3 to $5. So those incremental changes, I saw it happening in front of me. So yeah, because of that, I guess that's why there's been a change in the presidency as well over there.
So you mentioned that even if you make $100,000 Canadian dollars, the saving is not even $5,000 or $6,000 a year. So can you give a quick breakup of the spend that you usually have in Canada, accommodation, the public transport, and otherwise?
Yeah, so
As a student,
as a student, so let's say like if you're making 100,000, you're not really a student anymore, right? You're gonna live there. So as a person working there, after you graduate, you make $100,000. You can expect to have around $5,500 come in every month.
Yeah.
Right? After the taxes and everything is taken care of. Now, let's say you have $5,000 coming in every month. Out of those $5,000, around you can expect 1,500 to 2,000, depending on where you're going, goes towards rent. Net 3,000. Another 1,000 will go towards a car. Like if you get a bare minimum car, that's going to be 1,000 because of insurance and everything. Everything is expensive. Now we're left with $2,000, right? So out of those $2,000, groceries and basic expenses, they're going to eat away around another $1,000 because you will go out and everything. So net now you're left with $1,000. And this hasn't been, I'm not factoring in other miscellaneous expenses that will arrive.
Right.
Because there are going to be other miscellaneous expenses.
Is it the case because you were in Toronto, there are other provinces out there where the cheaper accommodation is there, the cheaper...
Of course. Edmonton, as I mentioned, I used to frequently travel. The rent is half, the expenses are half, but where are the jobs?
Okay, so you have to be in...
Toronto is the financial capital of Canada. Most jobs are either there or in Vancouver. Vancouver is at least 1.5 times more expensive than Toronto.
Okay.
It's the most expensive city over there.
Right.
And Edmonton and all, yeah, you're saving a lot on costs, but it's harsher. Edmonton, Manitoba, all of these places, the weather, it's extreme. Industries are not as developed because not everyone can survive in that extreme weather. So even the salaries you make are not much. The only people who prosper in these areas are people involved in manual hard labor like trucking or oil companies. Those sort of people tend to make a lot of money there, but not your average corporate people.
One number that I was interested to know was percentage of people who got placed from your batch. Any idea around that?
So in my batch, there were 55 people, out of which I was
55 Indians or
55 people. Yeah, I was in Masters of Finance, so 55 people, out of which I would say about 35 to 40 people were Asian, Chinese. Okay. All right. Around 12 to 13 were Indians, and 2 to 3 were, I think, local people. That is actually the breakup of the batch, right? So now the Asian community, as I mentioned, they stick with themselves. They don't use WhatsApp, they're on WeChat or something, right? They have their own talking mechanism. Indians tend to be together, and for the locals, they barely came to class if they ever decided to, right? So among us people, the 13 Indians, there were 3 to 4 people, not 3 to 4, but I would say around 5 to 6 people who got jobs and 5 to 6 who didn't. All right. Among the
50-60% got the job.
Yeah, 50. But the catch is those 50-60% of the people who got a job there were already making northwards of around 30 lakhs in India, right? Okay. Because they were in high positions. Some had been were on the verge of becoming CFOs over here. Some were in really senior positions in very senior banks. So anywhere they would have gone, they would have been the cream of the crop in terms of recruitment. And even they were not very happy with their salary packages eventually, because what they had in mind, they were getting half of that. Right. They, of course, stayed back because they had quit their jobs here. They had moved there with their families, in fact, right? So from their perspective, they went out to settle. So they had to stay back. But those of us who were younger, more early in their career, they decided to move back.
So this, you're talking about one of the top school out there. What is the condition of the schools and colleges of Canada who are not that well ranked?
So this is a good point you've brought up. There's a distinction between university and college. Yeah. To the extent that if you've done a degree from a college, what value that holds is very basic. So if you've done a degree from a college, they don't teach you anything firstly, right? There's no education. It's like going to a school of open learning in Delhi or somewhere in India, all right? The only benefit of that is that you get to stay back in Canada. Right. So a lot of these people, there's no, like, they don't teach anything and nothing is going on. So those students tend to pick up part-time jobs.
Okay.
Right. So the entirety of their day goes towards doing a part-time job, making money, recovering the tuition fee, gaining a return on investment. And then even if they don't, like, they do that after they graduate for a 1 year or 3 year period, depending on how many courses or the duration of their course. And they recover that money and they come back. They pick any degree they get because they are not there to build a career in that degree, because even they know, I think, that after graduating, that college diploma that they will have is not going to hold any value. So it's mostly more routine works like managing a store, working at Uber Eats, those sort of jobs.
But do they end up making more than what they would have made in India?
Yeah.
By doing
They do. That's why the model is so successful. That's why so many, like, these colleges tend to have so many people coming in. Because the fees over there, like, let's say you pay 12,000 or 15,000 Canadian dollars, it's like around 9 lakh rupees.
Right.
Right. If you get into the unit economics, if you drive an Uber and do nothing else, right, you will be able to generate a profit of about $1,500 at least a month. $1,500 to $2,000 a month. So you're making over $24,000 a year. And living as a student, you're not going to pay high rent. You're going to live in, you know, one of the dorms or something. You're going to save up on food. You're not going to eat out. So all in all, they do end up making a profit before they go back. But that being said, that there's no life. That's not the way to live when you're trying to settle outside. You can't drive an Uber till you're 40, 50. Right. Like, it's more relevant for people who come from very, you know, like, who don't have career aspirations as such. But if you want to build a career and doing Uber as a part-time, it's completely fine. But making that your main source of income and rejecting the education, the college, that is then you're sort of committing academic suicide in a way.
Right. That's what I was wondering, that what is the future? Let's say, okay, TK, you are, yes, maybe 2-5 years you are able to do such jobs, but what next after that?
Yeah, so nothing next after that.
So you have to keep doing that for you.
Yeah, you have to keep doing part-times. If you save enough money, you can try to start something of your own. That's what people do. You hear stories, you know, they drive an Uber for 10 years, save money, like no standard of living. Then they put all that, open a shop and, you know, sell some product or something. So that is one way to do it. But then you've come very far away from academics. You're going towards owning a business and all of those things, as you would expect a typical shop owner in India to be, open a mom and pop shop. So that's what the model is about.
Makes sense. So you, what I can see from this conversation is that you strongly recommend not to go to Canada at this point in time.
Right. Like, my recommendation would always be not to go to Canada.
Okay.
In fact, an interesting fact for you is last year they had a concept known as reverse immigration in Canada, which means the number of people that went from India to Canada, more people ended up coming back from Canada to India. Not because their permits were expiring, but they just simply did not want to stay there.
This number I have to check. I have not checked yet, but that's an interesting, like. So, what is interesting for me is that you are now in the business of sending students abroad, right? And you mentioned that you don't recommend Canada, you recommend other countries.
Right.
But are the ground reality of other countries same or different? Like, why UK today is better than Canada today?
So every country comes with its unique set of challenges and circumstances, right? So if we go one by one, like you mentioned UK.
Yeah.
UK is very accepting of Indian culture, Indians in general as people. And going to UK that's why been very popular among the Indian community. There's a very strong Indian community there, and the Britishers love those Indian peoples. There's a love for cricket, a lot of common ground over there, right? The only problem with UK is you've graduated, okay, let's say you got a job, you've worked there for 2 years. After that, you're playing on luck, right? There's no binding factor that is imposed on the UK government to grant you permanent residence over there. So in a way, it's going to be a gamble after that. So UK is good for people who want to go for short or medium terms. In the long term, and if anything goes wrong, the company you're working with refuses to sponsor you because they just simply can't, or they have to let you go, it's dicey and you will have to move back. That being said, that 1 year of master's degree, for example, with 2 years of post-study visa, and after that, 1 or 2 years of sponsorship from the company is more than enough time to build your life over there, get back the money you've invested, and sort of come back to India with a very strong resume and profile intact. So those things do make it desirable. And to top it all off, the universities in the UK have international recognition, which is very strong, like London School of Economics, LSB, UCL.
That's not where the students are going, right? The students are going to BPP University, Coventry University.
It depends. It depends.
Right.
Like if you look at any university across UK will have Indian students.
Right.
Now, where the student decides to go depends entirely on the profile and budget. Right.
Right.
So, in my experience, I've been doing counseling for quite some time now. There are two categories of students, right? One that want to go to these Coventry and all, as you mentioned correctly, these universities because there's a budgeting issue, right? In these universities, if £15,000 is the tuition fee, we get a scholarship of £3,000, £12,000 or £11,000 per in year or masters is what they will pay, which they can afford. But other universities, like if you want to go to Warwick or someplace, like if you want to go to King's, where the fee is around 35-40 lakhs, it can touch, right? Not everyone can afford that kind of money. It's 1/3 the price if you go there, which is a similar concept in India. Like if you go to IIM, there's a huge fee. If you go to some other college that is still strong but not IIM level,
Right.
you might have to pay 1/3. And when you graduate, the salary packages will look different, the lives will look different. So at the end of the day, it's an investment and it boils down on what you want to invest in, right? There are a lot of people who build their profiles, they're 9 CGPAs, have relevant experience, work with top companies. They are not going to go to Coventry. They have enough money to support themselves. So it depends on the clientele. It's a smaller clientele that targets the top universities, but it is there.
Okay, so I understand there are certain challenges with UK as well from the long-term perspective. So which country is best there? Where should you, where would you recommend a student today?
Right. So
which country they should
the
go?
country that I recommend to most students that I feel is sort of, a country which is an underdog, which is not known by a lot of people. The hidden gem would be Ireland.
I have been hearing name of Ireland for quite some time in the last few months.
So a lot of buzz is now being generated in around Ireland. So in the next 1 to 2 years, I see a lot of people who will want to switch their preference to Ireland. But currently, like I've been telling people in the last 1 year to go to Ireland, but most reactions be like, we haven't really heard of it. Because right now, the new buzzword is Germany. So 5 years ago, it was Canada. Canada got really populated. Then it switched over to Germany. Now, German companies have taken a hit to their absorption rate, right? Jobs are becoming stagnant there. Right. So now countries like Ireland will tend to do well. That is what I predict will happen. And for very simple reasons. Right now, the unemployment rate in Ireland amongst graduates is 4%, which is very less compared to other countries where the average is 10-11%. Like countries that are very successful. And that is a very strong point. Second, PR is very easy over there. So if you graduate from Ireland, you get a 2-year stay back, you work there. After that, if the company, like most companies will sponsor you, and within 4 years, you have a permanent residency, which is again very strong. And the third point that makes it most attractive is has the strongest ROI in terms of any other country, right? So most top public universities in Ireland will charge around 12 lakh rupees or 13 lakh rupees tuition fee on average, right? 1 year masters, you graduate, you directly hit a 35 lakh package. So that sort of ROI is very rare to find in other countries because the tuition fee compared to the average salary is very low. And of course, the icing on top that it's an English speaking country. So Europe in general is known for being one of those countries where, cost is very cheap. People can go and do their masters or bachelors. Ireland being, of course, one of them, but only the point that makes it stand out is that Ireland is English speaking. So you don't have to go through that entire burden of learning a new language, Spanish to Spain and Italian in Italy and so on.
So after Ireland, which is the second country that you would recommend as of today?
So after Ireland, if I have to recommend a country, then it would be Germany.
Germany. Okay.
But Germany only if you can go into the public universities. Private universities, like there are a lot of top universities that are private, of course, but in terms of return on investment, it makes sense to go to a public university because your tuition fee is going to be waived off, right? When that happens, everything from there is going to be a positive return on investment for you, for your career and all of that. So if you're from a science background, right, or you are, academically doing very well, then you should consider Germany as an option simply because of the free
What about
tuition.
Australia? What's happening there?
So Australia is a strong option, but the problem with Australia is it tends to be expensive, really expensive. So not a lot of students prefer that, but if you can afford it, then Australia is also a very strong option. Australia gives very high scholarship, 30 to 40%. Easily you're going to get scholarship. In Australia, the only catch is you'll have to do a 2-year master's because if you do a 2-year master's, you get a 3-year stay back on that, right? And the way PR works in Australia is every year the government releases a list of skilled workers.
Right.
And if the job that you're working in qualifies under that list, then you're eligible for PR, right? So in most cases, you can look at the list beforehand and know that, okay, this job is going to be there for eligibility.
Right.
And you can accordingly plan your stay there. So Australia, in fact, my own sister is doing her MBA over there and she plans to settle down in Australia because in terms of culture, it's very vibrant. It's always sunny. The weather is good. So it has a profound impact on your mood, and the lifestyle over there is also very different. So they tell me how it works over there is the day starts at 5-6 a.m. for most people, and by 4 p.m. offices are shut. 3 p.m., 4 p.m. So very early lifestyle, very different lifestyle, very zen. So it's like you're in Goa.
Right.
It's Australia is one big Goa and a very big coffee culture. So people who go there tend to then not come back. That's the reason. The culture over there is very different.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience in Australia. I went there for internship in my undergrad in Melbourne. So I can relate to these points that you are saying. The 3 months that I was there, I think all the points you mentioned are true about Australia. Makes sense. So you after graduating came back and you mentioned that you joined your mother's business,
Right.
which has been there for a decade now.
Yeah.
And you are revamping it. And you mentioned you've sent 50 students abroad last year. So what was the philosophy for you when you are sort of recommending students? Any student comes to you that, okay, hey, I want to go abroad. What is the broader level philosophy that you follow?
So the broader level philosophy I follow is send student to the country that is ideal for him, their goal. So if I have a 1-hour counseling session, 30 to 40 minutes is devoted towards finding out what the student wants. Because a lot of times these students don't know themselves what they want. Do they want to stay back? Do they want to come back? What sort of job do they want? What career aspiration do they have? If they've picked a particular career profile, is it because they saw someone else do it or because they wanted to do it themselves? So it's not just, study abroad counseling, it's career counseling on a more general level. And we want to build success stories that thank us in the years to come, not just right now. Because our business is one of trust, right? If I do well for a client today, not just getting him admission, but helping them settle down in life, build a career, give them everything that I promised on paper about how life should be for them, then that client will return back, create that goodwill for my company. So that is what we try to target. I want to build careers. I just don't want people to get admission and then forget about them. Build careers, help them settle down. That's why even today, if one of my previous client ever reaches out to me,
Right.
I have good relation with them to the point that I can connect them with other people that I might have sent to the country, and all obliged because I have what I say about, how the ground reality of the country is going to be is very close to what it actually will be, simply because I hear it from people already over there, not from, the newspaper or an article I read online. So that creates a difference.
Have you ever said no to a student that you should not go abroad?
Many times.
Like, can you give a couple of instances?
Yeah, so in general, there was a student I don't want to take, obviously I'm not going to take names.
No names.
But there was a student, in a broad sense, there are students who in India don't have the finances to study abroad. So their plan was to sort of, take a risk by selling their house and going abroad. And that was the only property they had. So to that, I advise against it, because I feel that going abroad, of course, there's a certain degree of risk that you're willing to take. But selling your house was not the suggestion I had. So whenever there's a financial mismatch, or the student wants to go to a particular university that I feel does not have very good prospects going ahead, so I simply declined that person. Like recently, just yesterday, I had a client who wanted to go for a German private university. They had already picked 2 universities that did not require a document known as APS. They had APS here. So I told him upfront that you can already guess what the quality of education you're looking at. There's going to be no future. All this investment that you're doing is going to go down the drain. Finding a job will be very difficult for you. These universities will have no standing. It's better that you take 6 months off and try to rechannel your focus towards some other country. And I told him, of course, with his profile, he could consider countries like Ireland instead of Germany, because it would be very expensive, and I just did not see an ROI on what his decision was. So then he went with another counselor.
Obviously, I think that's what at times when you are trying to change the perspective of the students,
Of course.
they at times are fixated on, no, I just want to do this only.
Right, but that is a problem I feel that this industry in general has, and that is that counselors too often try to give the students what they want instead of what is right.
Right.
And there can be 2 reasons: either the counselor themselves don't know, or they just want their profits to go up. But in either case, I only give a product or make a suggestion that I firmly believe will be a good decision for the student. So that's why understanding the student's goal is very important. If the student tells me, okay, I have a lot of money, I'm going to come back to India, join my family business, then yeah, the student can go wherever they want, do whatever they want. But if they're taking a massive loan, or they're selling their house to go, it has to be the right decision. I can't just let them waste away all of that money to go to a B tier, C tier university,
Right.
where I know, I'm 90% confident in my heart that they will not find a job after graduating. So I just tell them upfront the truth, and then, it's some other counselor's headache if they decide to go through with it.
Well, Dhanraj, I think I enjoyed this conversation a lot. I think we're running out of time. So thanks a lot. I think this was very great and very valuable to the people who are planning to study abroad. I am very excited, impressed by your journey and your journey that you're planning to go ahead with, where you are scaling your mother's business. Not everybody gets such kind of opportunity in life. So best of luck from our side, and we would be happy to help you out in any which way we can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.